Hi, everybody. My name is Kirsten, and today we are going to be talking about how to evaluate sources, specifically how to evaluate secondary sources that you plan on using for your research papers. So, what we are looking for specifically are sources that are unbiased and backed up by evidence. So, what that means is these articles and these sources are peer reviewed and they are credible. What peer reviewed means before we move on is that this article, this book, whatever material you are using, has been read and looked at and approved by other scholars in the same field. So it means there have been multiple people who are experts in the field who have agreed upon whatever the article says. So that's why being peer reviewed is so important. Thankfully, the CSUF database makes it relatively easy for us. When looking for sources at the library, you're going to just use the filter that makes sure that the sources that you are looking at are peer reviewed. So when you put in your research terms in OneSearch, this box right here will be on the left-hand side. Simply click that peer reviewed journal box and you now know that whatever is going to pop up is definitely peer reviewed. So you don't have to worry about whether you found a good source and it's not. Another good way, so maybe you don't click that button or you forget to click that button, you can look for this peer review symbol. It will be under all of the articles. And again, this just lets you know that the article is in fact peer reviewed and that it will be safe to use. So some other tips. A lot of times we just get comfortable utilizing articles when in reality, there are a lot of great books that the library offers that make great sources. There is one thing you want to be aware of. Some professors want you to specifically use peer-reviewed materials. If that is the case, you're going to have to triple check to see if the book is peer-reviewed. However, if that is not necessarily a requirement, books are still a great option. We have a lot available within the library and online. Especially after the pandemic, there are now a lot of books available online to you, so they're really easily accessible. The other thing you really want to be aware of are the dates of the articles. So if you're working on a research paper, the rule of thumb is you really want sources to range from the last 5 to 10 years. Specifically, if you're working in the science fields, so disciplines like psychology and nursing, this time frame is especially important because you want to make sure that you're using the most updated material possible. Now, there are some fields that it may not be as necessary. In the English field, for example, if you were using theory, you can still use the theory that was, established 50 years ago. But again, still you want to use materials that are as updated as possible. And again, same way how we have the option to click the peer review button here to the left, you have the ability to change the dates on the OneSearch. The next thing we're going to talk about is websites and how to verify them. Verifying websites can be very tricky at times, but thankfully there are multiple ways that you can check these sites to verify their reliability. One way that is really helpful is the amount of advertisements a website has. A website with a lot of advertisements, 9 out of 10 times is not going to be extremely reliable because it's not an education-based or an information-based site. So you really want to look for websites that don't have a lot of advertisements. However, that is not the only way to verify. There are a variety of questions that you want to keep in mind to verify whether or not the website is credible. And the best way to do that is using what we call the CRAP method. And what CRAP stands for is currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. And each of those terms have a list of questions to help you when you're looking at these websites to ask yourself to see if in fact these websites are credible. So we're just going to break it down by letter. So C stands for currency. And the questions that you're going to want to ask yourself is, when was this posted? Has the info been updated or revised? So you want to make sure that you're using the most updated version of the information. And does my source need to be current? Like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, sometimes it doesn't need to be as current as in some fields as it does in other fields. The second is relevance. So does this relate to my topic or answer my research question? And who is the intended audience? So who is the intended audience of the website can really let you know if or if not this is a credible website. The first A stands for authority. So who wrote, published, and sponsored this website? Do they have the proper credentials and are they qualified to talk about this topic? Super important, right? We want to make sure that the information that we are receiving from somebody is given to us by somebody who is allowed and credentialed in their field. We don't want to hear from somebody in a completely different field about a different field, right? We want to make sure that the person who is speaking has the authority to do so. The second A stands for accuracy. So where does the information come from? Is it supported by evidence? Has it been reviewed, right? So even on websites, you can tell if there are a lot of times there are markers that state whether or not the material has been reviewed. Is the language unbiased and free of emotion? Now, people can have opinions, right? Especially when it comes to arguments and things like that. But are they unbiased and free of emotion and basing their claims in research? It's really important. And then are there noticeable spelling, grammar, and punctuation issues? Now, an article that has been reviewed and checked and looked at for accuracy is not going to have a million spelling, grammar, and punctuation issues. So if you see that, that's probably a red flag that you don't want to use that website. And last is purpose. So what's the purpose of the information? Do the authors make their intentions clear? Is the information fact, opinion, or propaganda? Are there biases? Again, what is the purpose of this? And does the purpose align with my project? So websites that you can almost trust, and almost is really important here. Some web domains are more credible than others, and that's okay, but you also want to be aware of bias, and you want to be aware again of the source. So for instance, a lot of colleges, their newspapers are going to have edu domains. Well, a lot of college newspapers also have opinion articles and things of that nature. So just because it has an edu domain does not mean that it's not an unbiased article, right? Or maybe it doesn't have a lot of, it's not peer reviewed. So you still want to be careful of those domains. Now, people are very scared of Wikipedia, and it's understandable. We've been told to be scared of it for our whole academic careers. And you don't want to use it as your main piece of information. However, it is a good starting place. So at the end of the Wikipedia article, there's always going to be citations. Maybe this is just a good place for you to get your research started. Maybe you're just completely lost, and those citations can kind of lead you in the right direction. But again, it's just really important to be mindful that the information on Wikipedia is crowdsourced, meaning you and I could go on there and fill out an entry. So you just want to be careful of it. But again, it's not a bad place to start your research. But I do want to reiterate, do not use it as a source. Do not put this on your works cited. Do not put this on your reference page. Simply use it as a resource for you in your research process. The last thing we're going to talk about are just some other resources that Cal State Fullerton has to offer. The library research assistance is absolutely incredible. There are multiple ways that the library can help you and assist you in your research. The first is through a 24/7 chat. This is probably the most helpful if you have quick questions. Maybe you want help kind of verifying if a source is peer reviewed. Maybe you're unsure. Maybe you just have a question about a term or something, or maybe you need help finding new terms for your research. 24/7 chat is excellent. The email research help is probably a better option if you need, a more in-depth answer, right? You want somebody to kind of take the time to respond to an email. That's really helpful. Maybe your question takes a little bit more time. Maybe it's a 3-part question. The email option is great. And last, a lot of students don't know about this, but Cal State Fullerton offers something called a research consultation, where you fill out just a form that kind of talks about your discipline and what your research is. And you actually get paired up with a librarian who specializes in whatever field you're researching, and they can actually sit down with you and help you. This is great if you're a grad student and you're really struggling with how to get started on your thesis. It's also just great maybe if you are really new to research and you want somebody to sit down with you and really walk you through the steps. Again, all of these options are really wonderful. And they all can be found at the library website with the URL that's right here. Another resource you can use is Come to the Writing Center. We all are equipped with research knowledge, and we are all willing and able to help you with any research questions you may have. So yeah, you're more than welcome to come to the Writing Center. And lastly, ask your professors for guidance. A lot of times, they have materials or sources that may be good for your projects. Maybe they just kind of lead you into a certain scholar to use, or maybe they have, specific articles or books that you should be looking at. 9 times out of 10, they are one of the best resources because they know your material and they know what you're researching, and they can really guide you in the right direction. But long story short, don't be scared of research. Just make sure you're doing it in a good and a safe way, right? We want to make sure that everything we're using is going to benefit us in the long run. And that is it on evaluating sources today.